Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. I have 8 o'clock on my watch here. So welcome to What's Next for Fundraising. This is our second seminar for our new Breakfast on Board virtual series. We started this back in June, and we are happy to have PNC as a sponsor, and I will introduce Aaron in just a few. Right now, I just want to let you know that we are going to go live on Facebook in just a bit. We are recording this as well. If you want to mute your video at this time, you are more than welcome to. We hope that you will join us though. We do ask as well as if you will please all mute your microphones. In the reminder email we sent yesterday, there was a link for the evaluation. The Board Development Committee is asking you to please complete that evaluation so we know what you want, what you thought, what you need from us. We're also a United Way partner agency, and there's a lot of United Way information that they want from us. So if you could also complete that, that would be awesome. So here's our agenda today, a little bit of welcome, some Leadership York announcements. We're going to go through some quick Zoom stuff in the event. We have some new folks to Zoom. We'll have our amazing presenter talk about what's next for fundraising, and then we'll do some Q&A. About the Q&A, if you do have any questions, we ask that you put them in the chat room. We will have some staff monitoring the chat room and compiling those questions as we go through. So just some quick announcements. Our next Breakfast on Board, we'll be talking about staying connected to your program participants, your donor base, so forth and so on. How you do that in a time of crisis. That will be led by 3 of our Leadership York staff. That will be on Tuesday, August 25th, same time, same channel. And our Lunch on Board series, which is an in-person, we feed you lunch, we talk to you about board governance stuff, that will be announced later this fall to begin in January. We still have spots open for our programs, Future Leaders of York, Leadership for Diverse Schools, Mentorship York, and Leadership Training Program. If you know someone who could benefit from one of our programs, and who couldn't benefit from one of our programs, a simple quick email at info@leadershipyork.org will get you there. So just some quick Zoom stuff before we hear from our sponsor and from our presenter. We ask that you please mute yourself. I see some folks aren't. If you wouldn't mind, on the lower left part of your screen, you can click on mute. That will turn you off and we won't hear a spot in the background. If you want to see more than one person or see a few folks, if you have the capability, you can click at the bottom left of your screen as well and click on video, then click here on video, then click here on participants. You'll see more folks in the room, but you do have to have up on the upper left the ability to do so. If you'd like to see more of the participants and the slideshow or the PowerPoint, you can also do this as well. View options, and then hit side-by-side mode, and you'll see more of everything you'd like to see today. I had said just a while ago about putting your questions in the chat room. This is how you do it. At the bottom, about the middle of your screen, you're going to click on chat. And if you're still paying attention, you're going to type your question in there. Just make sure the question is going to everyone and not just to me, as I am not monitoring the chat room this morning. And then if you would like to just see Megan, and I hope you just want to see Megan, she will be sharing her screen with you. You can pin her screen by clicking the 3 dots on the top of your screen, click pin video, and there you got it. And that's what it will look like. Well, not exactly. That's Jessica Hoffman, but you get the point. So right now I'd like to introduce our sponsor, PNC. We reached out to them this summer. They stepped right up. We greatly appreciate their support. And today, Aaron Bowers is the Area Manager, Senior Vice President of Central Pennsylvania PNC. And I'm going to ask Aaron to share a few words with us. You're muted, Aaron.
Appreciate that. That's the, I guess, the adjustment I need to make here this morning. I appreciate that. So good morning, everyone. And thank you, Craig, for that introduction. As Craig had mentioned, I am the area manager and senior vice president for PNC Bank, covering the retail bank within central Pennsylvania. It is my pleasure to join you this morning for the second summer session virtual series of For Breakfast on Board. Obviously, PNC Bank is very proud to sponsor this series to allow nonprofit staff and board members in York the opportunity to engage in robust conversations and training. During these unprecedented times, the roles and responsibilities that we each have as leaders within the nonprofit community is incredibly important and challenging. Through my personal experience as a board member for the Cultural Alliance of York, I too have been focused on planning and fundraising to support the reopening both of profit and nonprofit businesses in our community. And I'm pleased to have the opportunity to learn alongside of you today and hear from Megan Given about strategies and techniques and that we can help for nonprofits to succeed in fundraising during these challenging times. So Greg, thank you again for allowing me to join, and I look forward to the presentation.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yes. You guys hear me okay? I'm turn it back over to you.
Thank you. All right, and so with no more waiting, the reason you've come here today, I'd like to introduce Megan Given. She's the Executive Director for White Rose Leadership Institute, and she's going to talk to us this morning about what's next for fundraising. You can also reach out to Megan at megan@givelocalyork.org. You're muted, Megan.
Thanks. I'm getting ready to share my screen here with y'all. All righty. Can you all see this dumpster fire? Okay. So thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. It was really nice to see all your smiling faces here joining us this morning. So I am the Executive Director of the White Rose Leadership Institute, which is a educational and professional development organization for nonprofit leaders. And we also organize Give Local York, which is the big give day for York County. Took place on May 1st this year, and more than 300 of our local nonprofits did a phenomenal job in bringing people together and raising funds for their mission. And so because I think that day was so successful, Leadership York had reached out and asked me if I could talk about, the future of fundraising and what's coming next. So I want to say, here's this dumpster fire, which I think is sort of how we all kind of view 2020 to date, and some of the things that have been happening. And I want to be pretty clear at the beginning that I don't think anyone has the crystal ball. No one knows exactly, what's going to be coming next. But I've spent a good portion of the summer doing some research and attending some different webinars and conferences to hear what people who are definitely more legit than me have to say about what's coming and where we are and where they think we're going. And so I have aggregated that information to share with you today because I certainly do not have the crystal ball. So one of the surveys that I started with was done by give.org. Now this was done at the end of March, so pretty early on in this dumpster fire, but a survey of both nonprofits and donors and adults And they came out with this special report for COVID-19 and the charitable sector. So before I get into those, I'd love to run a little poll here among the attendees today. And Craig is going to help me out with that. So I'd love to hear if you anticipate your organization's 2020 revenue to be higher than what you budgeted or expected this year, lower than what you budgeted or expected, or about the same. So let's see our results here coming in. Okay. So we're at about 86% of the votes in. It looks like about 60% of you think that your budget is going to be lower than you had expected originally. About 9% of you expect it to be higher, and about 30% of you expect it to be the same. And that's really interesting because that is pretty similar to what we've got going on here with this study. So what Give.org had found was actually about 80% of charities expected that their 2020 revenue will be lower than expected. And of those predicting a decrease, 2/3 of them thought that loss would be up to 30%, so pretty significant decrease in revenue. Only 3.4% of the nonprofits surveyed thought that their revenue would increase, and about 4% expected that it would stay the same with what was going on. And again, this was the survey was taken in March. So this was 118 nonprofits that were surveyed, and at the same time, there were 1,000 adults who were surveyed as part of this as well. And interestingly, close to 1/3 of those participants in the survey said that they actually plan to give more to nonprofits in 2020 as compared to their annual average give. More than half, 52%, said that they expect to give about the same. Only 8.8% said that they expect to give less, and 8% said they don't know. And another interesting point is that the younger generations were the ones who were much more likely to say that they plan to give more. So 47% of millennials and 60% of Gen Z said that they intend to give more to nonprofits this year compared to previous years. So what that shows is there's a real discrepancy between what the organizations expect is going to happen and what the donors are telling us that they are intending to do. And so that's just important to keep in mind as we're talking about what our intentions and our plans are going to be moving forward, is knowing that people are apparently in a mood to give, and we are, as nonprofits, a bit more pessimistic, I think, about what's going to happen. So that, again, was taken in March, but people seem to be willing to give. So it's not all bad, and it's not all dumpster fire at this point, or at least that'll be the caveat moving forward. So I wanted to do a little bit of research into what, where we've been before, how we've dealt as a nonprofit community with crises, with national crises, international crises, and what that has meant for fundraising in the past. And luckily, there is a pattern that emerges. So, while we hear, in these unprecedented times, or, now more than ever, what is happening is not completely new territory in terms of responding to a crisis, especially from a nonprofit standpoint. And so Jeff Brooks has shared this sort of timeline, this pattern that takes place when a crisis occurs and a nonprofit responds. So you have your baseline giving, which is this horizontal line here. You have the crisis occurring, and immediately after the crisis, there's an immediate dip, and then there's this bump, there's this surge in emergency giving, which is followed by a rapid drop, which leads us into the slump, which will last historically about 4 to 6 months. And so we are currently in this slump right now. Now, what Jeff Brooks is pointing out is there are two lines here. So you can see this dotted line as well. your slump is going to be a lot lower if you are not communicating to donors, if you are basically hiding your head in the sand and just trying to ride this thing out, as opposed to keeping up that communication and reaching out to people. And we'll get into that in a bit. So we are in this slump phase right now. And I think, anecdotally, folks can probably attest to seeing that as well. But the good news is that we should be heading into our surge phase, which will likely take us into fall and holiday end of year giving, so that aligns nicely with a lot of our timelines. And then when we hit the quote unquote new normal, we could potentially come out higher. Our baseline could be higher than in the past. Now, again, the caveat is that we have to keep reaching out and we have to continue our communications, and we'll get into that, like I said. So just to show you this in another way, this is some information from Network for Good, which is a fundraising software, online donation system, CRM management. And they were tracking what was going on with donations at the beginning of the pandemic here. So you see week 0, crisis hits, we were down -1%. And then we started to rise, and we hit our giving peak really end of April, and with Giving Tuesday now, which took place the week after the Tuesday after Give Local York. So Give Local York was aligned really nicely with this peak. So the timing worked out that we hit that bump, and then we're heading downwards into this slump period. So you can see this folks are tracking it. There is a pattern. It's not all chaos. But this is where we are. Network for Good also shared that during what they're calling the COVID period, during that bump from March through the end of May, giving was up 88%. And then in this transition period, while it is down, it's still in general up 53% over where it was last year. So we haven't completely fallen off the face of the earth. And here's just a snapshot of Give Days and how they have performed this year. This is shared with us by GiveGab, who is our technology partner for Give Local York and runs Give Days across the country. So in the first 45 days of 2020, so the beginning of the year, the winter, giving days were up 56% over where they were last year. In the second 45 days, the Give Days that were unfortunate enough to take place in early March and right when all of this was happening, they did see a drop. They were down about 2 to 3%. But as we've been moving forward in this next chunk where Give Local York fell, giving was up 86%, where it was the year prior. And then the Give Days that took place at the beginning of the summer saw a huge increase. So the people are wanting to give, and the money is out there, apparently. All that to show you this. So again, we're looking at historically what happens when there's a crisis. Crisis happens, there's this immediate bump, this rise, then we dip down into the slump, which is where we're slogging through now as we make our way back into the surge. And what I'd love to talk about is, how to prepare us for the surge and how to make sure that we are taking advantage of the situation that is before us. But I also wanted to extend history back a little bit further to show you that this pattern is not, it's not something I made up. It is something that exists, and other folks have shared. So this is looking back 100 years over many crises that we've experienced as a country. And you see these spikes in giving that occur around events like World War I, Great Depression. I like how they just have the early 80s in general as a crisis. Just the early 80s was a crisis. But you can see, this a dip, a bump, a slump, and then a recovery, a surge into recovery. And what I really want to point out to you is that, what we're looking at here, the purple is the overall giving, but the green here in the middle, these are individuals, and the blue down below is the itemized giving. So individuals continue to be our bread and butter essentially as nonprofits. So it's not the businesses, it's not the tax write-offs, at a large scale. It's individuals who are comprising the majority of the giving. And I think that that's something that we can, testify to with what we see during Give Local York. It's 11,000 people coming together, literally with $5 gifts to make this difference. So always just important to remember that, while we're seeking sponsorships and corporate dollars, individuals make up 80% of all of the giving in the United States. Now, I would be remiss to say, if I didn't say, that COVID is not the only crisis that we're dealing with as a country and as a world, essentially. COVID has exposed some deeper issues that we have been dealing with for a long time. So, through this pandemic, through this crisis, it has pulled the curtain back on systemic racism and child hunger, disparities in education, and just generally the safety net full of holes. And, for those of us who work in the nonprofit world as agents of social change, we knew that these problems existed, right? But what seems to be happening now is that the world is waking up to these problems as well. And it's definitely part of the conversation. So as I was, preparing this presentation, I think the thought initially was, what comes after a pandemic? What comes after COVID? But COVID is not the only crisis that's happening right now. And I think that is important for all of us to remember. And it's also important for us to remember that this is an election year. On top of everything else that's going on. And so I found this information from Classy, which is another online fundraising software, that shows what happened to giving during the 2016 election, and the effect it had on it. Because I think a lot of us, when I had heard about the election effect before, it was sort of this idea that because donors have the option to support candidates or support campaigns, that they might be diverting dollars away from supporting nonprofits. And what we've seen historically, and especially in 2016, is that was not the case at all. And what we saw was an increase in giving around election issues, specifically an increase in recurring donations, and in particular, an impact in gifts to civil rights related organizations, which saw the biggest boost. And the folks who signed up for these recurring donations continued that for a longer period of time. So specifically around the 2016 election, there were some events that caused some spikes in giving. And those were, these are gifts we're looking at right now to civil rights organizations and organizations supporting LGBTQ issues and that community. So you can see when Philando Castile was murdered, huge spike in gifts to civil rights organizations. After Election Day, an enormous spike, not only for civil rights organizations, but specifically for LGBTQ focused organizations. And then again after Inauguration Day. So, that to say, you want to be a part of this conversation. And if there are topics that are coming up during the political conversation, during the election, that are related specifically to your mission and the work that you do, you want to insert yourself in that conversation, because these charged political climates can be a key time, a key opportunity. I've seen it referred to as rage giving. So, you want to pay attention to this, because if you specifically, are working in civil rights organizations, in healthcare now, education, all of these hot button topics that are being discussed right now, if you're doing work in that area, you want to insert yourself in there and take advantage of the fact that people are paying attention, and you can convert the donors when they're most motivated. So take advantage of that rage giving. I've brought us to where we are, what we've been seeing, where things are going. What I'd love to hear from you now are your personal hopes post-COVID. So want to hear if you hope to change some things about your life after this, and you hope that we have learned from this crisis as a country. If you hope that we have learned from this crisis as a country, but you want your personal life to go back to how everything was. If you hope everything will just go back to how it was. Or if you want to change some things personally about your life, but hope everything else goes back to how it was. So I know that's pretty confusing, but generally want to see what your personal hopes are, coming out of this crises, plural. All right, we're at about 75% of the votes in, so I think that'll be good to say that 83% of us here have shared that I hope to change some things about my life, and I hope we will have learned from this crisis as a country. And about 13% of us hope that we will have learned about this crisis as a country, but want our lives to go back to how it is. And 4% want to change some things about our lives, but want society to go back to how it is. No one has shared that they want everything to go back to how it was before this. So this was a poll that was done in the UK. And that's part of the reason I wanted to poll this group here, because obviously the UK is different than the United States. And that's becoming clearer, every day, that the United States is just its own special place. But so of this poll that was done in the UK, only 9% of people want everything to go back to how it was before. And in our group today, no one wants everything to go back to how it was before. Most everyone polled wants to make some personal changes out of this, and also hopes that we are learning from this as a country. And I think that, that's inspiring, and that's good to know, and it's hopeful. This same survey, again, United Kingdom, different than the United States, but the people who were surveyed during this thought that Britain would come out of these crises being more united and kinder than they were before heading into this. And I think that is great news for those of us who who rely on the kindness of strangers and the kindness of donors, and who rely on folks wanting this united community, because that is our job as the social sector. So that desire is there, and people want to be kind. They want us to learn and change as a group. So these are really important numbers. This, I think, was interesting to share too, is this shows the conversation that was happening on social media as the country was heading into Giving Tuesday Now, which, as a side note, for anyone who's not familiar with Giving Tuesday Now, Giving Tuesday takes place the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. It is essentially a global day of giving. This group that puts on Giving Tuesday Now had decided, as an emergency response to COVID, that they would push out a Giving Tuesday Now in May, to allow folks to take advantage of this desire for kindness and wanting to help, and to have a give day. So basically they were copying off of Give Local York, is what I like to say, because it took place the Tuesday after. But so the social media conversation leading up to Giving Tuesday Now in May was really focused. These big numbers are focusing on community, on support, on unity. This is what people were saying, and this is what they are thinking about during this time. So I think it's important for us to get into the head of our donors and our donors at large, to think about where they are during this time and how we can bring them to us. So this is shared from Blue Frog Fundraising, and the idea is, in this face of considered uncertainty, people are giving to combat helplessness, right? And they want to be a part of the solution. And it goes through phases. So, at the beginning, it was sort of like, I want to help. I want to keep positive changes. I want to offset this impact. I want to be part of the solution. Where I would say we are now, as we've moved through this phase, is we need to be in this engagement phase where the donors are saying, tell me what I need to do, right? I gave back in May. I responded to your initial request, but keep me engaged and informed, because I don't want to feel stupid. I know that this isn't over. Tell me what you need me to do. And that's what we need to do, is, tell folks what we need. So one more poll. When it comes to fundraising currently and moving forward, is your organization planning to increase your fundraising efforts, to maintain current fundraising efforts, or to decrease your fundraising efforts? All right, awesome. So at about 85% of the poll, 70% of us are increasing our fundraising efforts, 28% maintaining fundraising efforts, and about 2% are decreasing fundraising efforts. So this is a survey that was done by AFP, the Association of Fundraising Professionals, in May. And 49% of those surveyed were going to increase their fundraising activity. 44% were keeping their fundraising at normal levels, and 7% plan to decrease their fundraising. So I'm thrilled to see that most of us are planning on increasing our fundraising activity or maintaining it, because what we do not want to do is decrease. We don't want to just hide our heads in the sand and fall off the face of the map. We want to make sure that we're continuing to communicate, because donors have told us they want to stay engaged. They don't want to feel stupid. Tell us what we need to do. And when those same organizations were asked what types of fundraising they're going to focus on, 82% of them are focusing on donor retention and stewardship. So that means working with the donors that you already have, and building a stronger relationship and engaging those folks who have already indicated that they care about you. And this survey also shared that online and focusing on new technologies and social media, online virtual pieces are what they're going to be focusing on. So for this moment, we're going to hop in and look a little bit further at this donor retention and stewardship. So I think what's important is, if your organization has been able to take advantage of that surge, right, or take advantage of crisis giving or rage giving, what we've seen is that donors are giving as an extension of their compassion in a crisis, and not necessarily because they were inspired by your organization. And I know that sucks to hear. But so this would be, for new donors that you've gotten during this time, or maybe folks who have come back out of the woodwork after, having not supported you for a while. So again, these are folks who want to help in some way and see donations and charitable support as a way to help. So what we have to do now is to build this relationship with them. So we got them in their rage, we got them in their wanting to help, and we have to build these relationships and continue to steward them and work them through this process. And I also thought that this was a really important piece of information, because, of course, we always want to thank our donors, and we talk about the importance of saying thank you. But these occasion donors, or these crisis donors, what they want to see is an impact report. So they want to see, especially when they're giving in times of crisis, they want to see what you did with the money that they give you during that time, to show, that you're using their money responsibly, and they want validation that, their compassionate gift, their attempt at helping is making a difference. So, so these are for the folks that are giving, specifically during a crisis, or, because of that rage giving. They want to see the impact. So thanking, of course, is important, but if you can do it in a way that shows them how you're putting their dollars to work, that's going to be appreciated more, according to this research. And, I think what I always like to tell people is, there's no harm in asking, and especially in times of uncertainty, asking donors or asking folks who are engaged or connected with you in some way how they want to check in with you, how they want to be communicated to, how they want to receive updates, because we are, treading an unknown path, right? So there's no harm in reaching out to your connections, your supporters, to say, as we're navigating through this, how do you want to be communicated to? How often do you want to receive updates? There's no harm in asking, and then you can actually inform your tactics and your response based on what your actual supporters are telling you they want from you. Because again, they don't want to feel stupid. They want to continue to help, but they need you to help them through that process. And if you need their help to help them, it's all one big circle. Help me help you is what we're saying here. So these, going back again to this slide, organizations are going to be focusing on connecting with these donors who already are related to them in some way and stewarding them through. And they are specifically going to be doing this by using technology and online options, focusing on social media, virtual events. A good portion of them are focusing on email. So I think that this is a good time to talk about online giving and the increases that we've seen over the past few months. So this is information, again, from GiveGab. And what they're showing us is that online giving has gone from 8% of total giving to now 25% just here in this first part of 2020. So that is immense, huge growth for online giving. People have adapted very quickly to this online lifestyle. And so this is something that we need to be aware of. This is showing, this is from Rakuten, this year-over-year change in just daily e-commerce spending. So the amount of time and what people are doing online, they're shopping online from January to March. And this huge spike here, this is obviously this is where we are at the start of the crisis. People are doing their grocery shopping online. They're placing these orders for delivery. So this pandemic, this being in lockdown, has really shifted people's focus and comfort level to being able to operate online and do a lot of their transactional business in a virtual online format. Very interestingly to me, older Americans, our seniors, are getting savvy with online technology and tools. So this survey was taken in April, and what you can see here is these are folks over the age of 60. 77% of them have paid bills or made financial transactions online. They're shopping online. They're downloading apps. They're ordering groceries. So these are our seniors. These are our older Americans who, I think in the past we were sort of like, oh, they're not going to communicate with us online. They want things in the mail. They want to call to their landline. No, our seniors are getting savvy, and this has really prompted them to do so. So they know how to use credit cards online. They know how to operate in this online sphere. And downloading a new app, I thought was really cool. 7% of them are video conferencing, so they're Zooming. So don't count them out as we might have done in the past. And then on the flip side of that, we talk about these younger donors being different, and I think they are extremely important to keep in this conversation, because as we saw way back at the beginning, our younger donors are the folks that are sharing that they're really looking to give more money this year and to donate more. And I know from a Give Local York perspective, the younger generations are sort of our holy grail. That's what we're going for, because we'd love to build a pipeline of younger, engaged donors who want to continue to support causes that they care about. So obviously our younger donors are a bit different. And what I want to point out here, because I think that this is something that not everyone is leaning into yet, is that a lot of younger donors have shared that they actually prefer text messages or actually voice calls. Gen X, which I'll say I don't want a voice call, but I will do a text message. But in general, this is what they're sharing. So across the board, both Gen X and the millennials are saying that they respond best to text messages and to social media. And the millennials have shared that they rarely check their personal email or respond to voice calls. So these are important things to keep in mind as we, look at who we're going after and how we want to be communicating best with the folks that we're trying to reach. So what this means for us as we look at this donor engagement lifestyle, because this is where we should be focusing, is, you know, we want to recruit, we want to get these folks on board, we want to learn about them and how they want to be engaged with, we want to engage them, we want to ask them for money, and then hopefully when they make that gift, we want to thank, and then we want to repeat, right? This is the donor engagement life cycle that we're hoping to bring all of these folks into. And this is a really great time right now to focus on this learning phase, and learning more about our donors. So some of the metrics that we can be looking at right now to help us through this is, I would recommend taking a look at the number of donors who have come into you through a crisis form. So I would consider Give Local York to be a crisis form. So example, taking a look at your Give Local York donors, specifically new donors who are coming to you, or if you can see donors who came in specifically as a response to a campaign or an ask you might have made that has been specifically focused around COVID or some of the civil rights issues that are going on now. So you consider these sort of like your crisis donors or your occasion donors. So you're looking at those donors as well as your organic donations and the folks that generally support you all of the time. And then you also want to look at those original donors who came into you, who came in through this crisis, and then who will eventually make a second gift, right? Because what we've seen is donors who make a second gift or sign up to be a recurring donor, these are the folks who are more likely to be retained over time, and they're going to be on board with you, hopefully for the long haul, if you continue this donor engagement cycle. And then you can use that as a benchmark against your, you know, quote unquote regular donors to see how you're doing. If you're using an email marketing system or you know, using your social media insights or some sort of tracking, what you can also do if you haven't asked for the second gift yet, or you haven't seen this second round of giving to come in, look at those metrics that you're seeing you know, in your emails, and seeing, you know, donors who came in through a crisis. If they're receiving and opening your emails, you know, look at who's opening them, look at who's unsubscribed. I know sometimes it hurts to do that, but what that's telling you is that you need to reach these donors in a different way. So maybe through social media, or maybe exploring text messaging, or even Facebook ads. And then the donors who came in through a crisis who are responding to emails, and which ones they're responding to, that can help you craft your message and figure out, you know, what they care about and what they're interested in, so that you can basically test and tweak and continue to hone your message, and making sure that you're engaging with your donors in the way that they want to be engaged. So this is a really great time to learn about your donors and your connections, to get to know their behavior patterns and what it is that they are looking for, so that you can build your tactics around specifically what they want. So, you know, and I think this is what's really important, right? Is unless you ask, people won't know that you need help. So again, going back to this idea of, you know, I as a donor, I don't want to feel stupid. Tell me what you need. Tell me what you need me to do. So you want to show the work that you're doing, the impact that you're making. Talk about your staff. We're building trust and demonstrating, you know, authenticity. So that goes into this idea that, you know, people are saying they want to come out of this a kinder, more united front, right? So showing the human side of things, not only the beneficiaries that you're working with, but your human side, your staff, the folks who are making this happen, and reminding people, you know, that it's we are building this community. And it's also fine to say, you know, we don't know, but this is what we are doing. You know, so it's okay to start your presentation on the future of fundraising with a picture of a dumpster fire, and to say, like, we don't know, but this is what we're seeing, this is what we're thinking. That transparency and that authenticity, I hope, you know, resonates with people, because we are, you know, in this together. And that, again, that idea of focusing on empathy, on relevance, specifically around these conversations that are happening at a national level when it comes beyond COVID, when we're talking about civil rights issues and Black Lives Matter, and going back to school and the educational disparities. I mean, all of this conversation is happening, and I know, you know, all of you are working in these areas in some way. So there's a spot for you in this conversation. And then I wanted to throw this in here because I steal it from Patton Oswalt and Michelle McNamara, that, you know, it's chaos, be kind. That's what this is about, right? We're doing this to build this community. And this is also a really good time for us to be able to set ourselves up for success before the next crisis comes around. So, you know, the idea of having a plan. If your organization doesn't have a crisis communication document, this would be last year would have been a good time to create one, but, you know, here we are. So it would be a good time to create a crisis communication document to help us through the process before the next crisis comes. Bloomerang has a really great sort of plug and play template that you might want to check out. That is free. And you also want to see if you can start streamlining your decision making. So having a clear chain of command and approvals, so that you don't, so that you can respond to these crises quickly, and you don't have to get stuck in this cycle of getting approvals and waiting forever and then coming out with your messaging or your response 2 weeks later. This idea of always be optimizing. So this idea of tracking your metrics, seeing what's working, see what previous successes you've had and how you can build on them, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And this idea of keeping track of what works, testing, optimizing, scaling your success. These are things that work all the time, not just during a crisis. So it's really getting to know your donors so that you can build that deeper relationship and steward them through, so that they continue to support you and your mission. And because I started with a dumpster fire, I want to end with a silver lining. And some of the information, this again comes from this AFP survey, was, you know, the good things that are coming out of this, and what nonprofits are saying, and hopefully that you're seeing some of these good things as well in your organization. So, you know, 76% of nonprofits are saying that this has helped them find more efficient ways for staff to work online. They're finding new ways to raise funds online and finding more efficient ways to pursue their mission. This is enhancing the ways that they can connect and reach their donors, and also leading to improved collaboration with other groups, because, you know, we are all in this together. So, you know, I think that we can definitely come out of this a kinder, more united front, and we can hopefully make good on those, on our intentions, as we said, to learn from this and to come out of this, you know, stronger with some changes, and not just go back to how things were. But it's that human connection and really getting to know what people want, and making sure that you're maintaining those lines of communication. So that is, you know, the end of the presentation. But I am, of course, happy to answer questions and, you know, to talk about if this is ringing true for you, or, you know, if there are specific issues that you're facing as an organization, if there was anything that was surprising to you, or, you know, anything that seems like complete BS, you know, let's talk about it. So I'm open to that. I guess, Leadership York, someone's maintaining the chat for us. I want to throw some questions.
Yeah, so I think the questions, from what I understand, the questions that were put in the chat room, you nailed it. You answered all of them. So
Okay.
if you have a new question that was perhaps missed or wasn't, you didn't ask yet, feel free to throw it in the chat room or unmute yourself at this point and ask away.
Hello, group. This is Wade, Marco. Megan, great presentation. I love all the information. It's very helpful. Here at the American Heart Association, we are starting day 2 of a 3-day national meeting to learn how we are pivoting and what does our fiscal year 2021 look like. Some of those numbers you shared, we heard yesterday in day 1. So again, it is something that we need to look forward to. A number that they had shared with us is that 30% of our revenue from any of our events comes from 25, our top 25 donors. So something that organizations might want to take a look at. So again, that stewardship that you mentioned is definitely very, very crucial. Do we know what impact the events going virtual played on the online giving over the last couple months? And I asked that question because we had our social event during the pandemic, and we needed to have that go virtual. So we went from about $1,500 online for that to over $25,000 being online dollars. And again, what it told me is that our donors will give based on the opportunity they are given. So.
Yes, yeah. So I have not seen results on that in terms of a study or, a beautiful chart that I can share with you. But I have heard anecdotally from some organizations who have gone virtual with their galas, or, have had to pivot in some way. And by all accounts, what I am hearing is that their events were, just as successful as they had been, and of course without the expense, right, of renting a venue and paying for rubber chicken dinners and doing the whole deal. Now I will say I've had some folks reach out to me. So last year, the White Rose Leadership Institute, I was looking for a fundraiser that I could do for the Leadership Institute, not for Give Local York. And for those who don't know, I'm a staff of one. So, I was sort of like, what is something I can do that is not a huge lift and isn't going to drive me crazy? And we had done, we did a non-gala, essentially. So we leaned into this idea of, you're attending all these galas, you get all these invites. Why don't you pay us to not have to come to a gala, right? And it went really well. It was online and it was cheeky and we had fun with it. So people have reached out now to me to say, like, how did you make that work? And what I've shared with them is I don't know if we're going to be able to do that again, right, in this new era, because people are not going to galas and maybe they want to be going to galas. So, it's this idea of, I think, getting in the mind of donors and thinking about why they want to come to an event, and why they give financially, to support these events. And so, most of them, I think, are giving, and I don't have numbers on this, but I would say, quite a few of them are giving because they care about your mission, because they care about the organization, and the event is, icing on the cake. Or for some of them, the event is a pain in the butt, and they're coming because, their boss bought a table and they have to come. So it's a balance of people who still want to experience kind of a fun gathering together, but ultimately they're doing it because they care about the work that you're doing and they want to give you money. But this is, again, where it doesn't hurt to ask. So if you have a gala, if you have an annual event, to reach out to the people who have been your attendees in the past and say, what would you like? What do you want us to do? So that you're not sort of guessing for them. But I got away from your original question, which was, does it seem that virtual events are doing okay or sustaining? And it does seem like they are. I don't know if that's going to be a long-term option. I think, a lot of this now is donors realize that nonprofits have to pivot and sort of make do with what we've got. And I think that works certainly to take advantage of in the immediacy, but that there will probably need to be some planning and some consideration done in terms of what that looks like going forward, and in the long term.
I'm wondering if there are any resources that you could recommend to become more online giving savvy or that demonstrate best practices. I want to learn more about this topic, and I'm wondering where I should go.
Yeah. So I would recommend a good place to start, in my opinion, just based on who I've worked with before. There's a business called Classy.org. I had worked with them when I was at Downtown Inc. And we set up our online giving through them. You have the ability not only to create just sort of a regular portal to accept donations on your website, but then also, you know, running different campaigns and different things. So that's a paid service, but Classy has a really robust blog. And they host a conference every year that's called the Classy Collaborative. This year, I was able to attend it in person last year. This year it was virtual. And all of those webinars, those videos are available on the Classy website. And they're talking a lot about these things. So while it is a paid service, the free resources that they put out there are really great and good information. Network for Good, I think, is you know, is a good partner as well. And Network for Good, you can actually, any 501c3 can set up to accept donations through Network for Good and use that as your online portal. The one thing I would say though is they send you checks quarterly, so it's not an immediate gratification. They sort of, you know, they collect those donations and then you get a payout, you get a disbursement quarterly. But registering with Network for Good, Network for Good partners with Facebook. So if you see those Facebook fundraisers that that organizations are doing or individuals do on behalf of an organization, that mechanism is actually through Network for Good. So once you set up with Network for Good, then you're able to run these Facebook campaigns as well. So yeah, so I would check out Classy, I would check out Network for Good, and that's sort of that's a good place to start, I would say. And if anyone else you know, wants to chime in or share their experiences with good online giving platforms, we'd love to hear them. And I see some questions in here about text to give or you know, utilizing that. And a lot of our attendees are touting mobile calls, which is also I can vouch for mobile calls as well. I think that is a great tool. So something, you know, worth looking into. Oh, I see. Someone asked about a platform for virtual events. So I don't know, you know, some of you who have had virtual events, maybe want to share what you've been using. I've heard, you know, folks are having Zoom galas essentially. There are online auctions that you can set up. So we're sharing GiveSmart. I've used 32 auctions before for online auctions. I've seen some Facebook live streamed type, you know, galas or events. I believe Olivia's House had theirs the other day. So I think, you know, any sort of virtual conference format that you're familiar using, like Zoom or similar, is what I've been seeing organizations doing. But if anyone else has suggestions, feel free to throw them out there.
I agree with you, Megan. Any of those work. We use Zoom for our gala event the end of May. I would strongly encourage people to do as many videos as possible for speakers versus live stream, because you never know what's going to happen. And it changes the experience for those attending.
We're going to be using Zoom as well for Laugh Your Took Us Off here at the JCC. So that's going to be interesting to do a live comedy show virtually. So that will be coming up at the end of August.
Looking forward to it. I think we could all stand to laugh our faces off. Okay.
All right, well, it is about 9 o'clock, so we don't want to hold you any longer. You may need some more coffee, or your breakfast might be sitting right in front of you. Either way, we want to thank you. We also want to direct your attention to the evaluation that's in your email. It's also in the chat room for you. Please, 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 we will compile the evaluations and share them with Megan as well. So again, we ask that you please complete the evaluation. We'll give you a few days to do that. The sooner the better. If there's nothing else, Megan, thank you so much.
You.
Ellen from PNC Bank, thank you so much for sponsoring and making this available to 65 participants today and many folks watching on live Facebook Live. So thank you, and we hope to see you on Tuesday, August 25th for staying connected.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.